How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the old and kind of new podcast. The post or hopefully post-pandemic version. Because last time we set up a podcast, Vic, we were breaking ankles, and now we are Windy City Digits. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Things have changed. You've got married since then, and new place. And we're doing this remotely now. So before we would do all our episodes in the same place, and now we're able to do these episodes remotely. So it'll be good talking sports with you again. And again, we're going to focus on Chicago sports, basically on these podcasts. Just two guys just really hanging out and just talking, giving our thoughts is what we're thinking about. And we'd love to hear your comments below for what's going on as far as what we're talking about. Any your thoughts, maybe we'll bring them up on future episodes. If you might hit that subscribe button and also the bell to get notified on future episodes, that would be great. So, Vic, obviously the biggest thing lately that has been going on.
I'm going to interrupt you really quickly first, though. Too, also we are currently on Twitter as Windy City Dig.
Windy City Dig. Okay, I'm going to post that in the show notes in the comments below. Dig. So we'll post that.
We're going to be always commenting on that handle.
All right. So biggest thing we were talking about, or that's been in the news lately, obviously, is Nagy is gone as the head coach of the Bears. And they're now searching for a head coach and a general manager. So one thing I'm curious in what you think about, do you think it's important that we hire a general manager first and then the head coach? Or, does it screw it up if we hire the head coach first and then the general manager? Like, what are your general kind of thoughts on that?
Well, we already screwed it up. So it kind of leaves us with a little bit of a predicament because honestly, the Bears, they have all these coaches that are free right now. They're gonna lose out on a coach if they don't do both simultaneously, which they're doing. I think they should have hire GM first, someone who actually knows about the current coaching, and go that way.
So,
how about yourself?
Well, my thoughts on this is that you need to hire the general manager first. And then that way they have a working relationship or someone they know they trust as far as the head coach. That's my own personal thought on that, right?
But timing.
Look, there's timing to it, and like everyone's talking about, we're also dealing with the McCaskey family here, right? There's a lot of tradition there. There's a lot of what seems to be dysfunction, and to have George McCaskey in charge and saying that the general manager is going to report to me when he's admittedly said he really knows nothing about football other than that he's a fan, that kind of puts us behind the eight ball. And I'm not exactly sure what we're waiting for. Like, why is it taking so long for us to put a general manager into place? So I think that's one thing that's kind of messing the whole thing up. My other fear is that they're going to make decisions based on what the fans want, right? I mean, there's hot picks right now like Harbaugh, right? Ryan Day from Ohio State.
We haven't heard anything about that. That's just in the news. That's like him and Riddick.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah. I mean, look, that's the thing, though. It's like, we make all these hires based on, what we thought was right, what the fans want. I think Justin Fields was a great pick last year. The problem is we've set him back here.
Did you like Nagy originally when he got the coaching position?
I liked Nagy because I thought he was going to take Trubisky to another level. And anyone who knows me, I'm not apologetic about this. Like, I was a huge Mitch fan.
Yes, you were.
I was almost to a fault, like a big Mitch fan, and I still don't get to this day, how is it that you go from a Pro Bowl quarterback, right, and then not wanting to develop him and not wanting to make him better and not letting him play? He obviously did something right by making the Pro Bowl and getting us to the playoffs, right? Look, and on a side note, right, as far as the general manager is concerned, we have to get a general manager that knows what he's doing. Because I thought about this watching the football games yesterday. The single worst thing, right, that Pace ever did was not re-sign Robbie Gould. That was the downfall. Like, that was the start of it.
That's not the single worst.
Look,
man.
we make that field goal in that
What about
first
hiring
playoff
Mike
game.
Glennon? What about hiring Mike Glennon?
Look, even before that, right? I mean, look, you win a couple more games with
Andy
Cole.
Dalton. Yeah.
At that point, who knows who was in charge, right? Both of them probably knew they were out the door. They probably had no idea they were going to have Justin Fields fall into their lap.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday. I think it was Kaplan. No, it was three other guys who were doing a podcast about the Bears, and they saw that Pace did some good things and some bad things, but Nagy absolutely had to go.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that?
Absolutely. I mean, look, there was news reports this week how Trubisky and him are supposed to have, Nagy was supposed to have a meeting about him improving after his 2019 season. Mitch was prepared. He showed up with notes, and he was ready to go and eager to learn and be coached, and Nagy didn't show up. And to me, that's not just a failure on the coach. That's a failure on the organization, right? Because at that point, someone's got to step in. Like the general manager or someone's got to step in and like, look, this is our quarterback, right? You've got to work with him because we're not going to get another quarterback right now, right? He was a Pro Bowl quarterback. What's the problem? Work with him, right? And, so to me, that just spoke more to it.
So you've got some coaching options. Brian Flores, Leslie Frazier, Brian DeBall seems to be the biggest hit right now. Matt Eberflus.
If Dayball gets the job from Buffalo, I would be interested to see if he decides if he wants to bring Mitch back as the backup.
Oh man! Well, they got Nick Foles as a backup for next year. What do you think they're going to do with him? They're going to cut him and try and save some. I don't know if they could save some salary from cutting him. But they've got to save some salary and restructure stuff.
Look, to me, it doesn't make sense if you have a running quarterback or a mobile quarterback as your number one, and then you have a different style quarterback as your backup. Because then you're running a completely different playbook. You need to have someone that's similar in style as far as being able to use their legs, being able to scramble, being able to run, because that's what your whole offense is built around. It doesn't make sense to me to have someone different. So if for someone they brought in someone like Dayball and Justin Fields is your number one, is your QB1, why not bring in someone like a Trubisky who can move and can run, that can do the same type of plays that he can, right?
Who's the Atlanta Falcons coach? He's also past Falcons coach Snyder. He's another one that a lot of people like.
Well,
I don't know if you know.
To me, I don't know why you wouldn't go with someone who's had a winning pedigree, right?
I agree with that.
Why wouldn't you?
Which we haven't done.
Yeah, look, why wouldn't you go with someone like a Byron Leftwich in Tampa Bay who's working with the GOAT for the last 2 years, right? And Tom Brady's had nothing but good things to say about him, right? And then
we haven't heard his name. Same with Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, Bieniemy is the other guy I was going to mention from Kansas City. This is the guy that actually is calling the plays for Mahomes. It's not Andy Reid. Yeah. It's Bieniemy, right? If you want,
but I am worried about doing that again. We're going to have some Trestman, Nagy.
Look, Nagy came out of nowhere. No one knew who he was when we hired him. Yeah, look,
he was in the news as a top possibility. At that time.
Look at the guys that are sitting there waiting. The guys that are sitting there waiting in the wings have been mentioned year after year and have been interviewed year after year, right? And they just haven't gotten their opportunity because why they haven't gotten their opportunity? Because their teams make deep runs into the playoffs.
Yeah, you like the Indianapolis Colts people that we've been talking to, right?
Well,
because they have a pretty good record of developing offensive lines, defensive lines.
Yeah, again, all I really want, look, Pace was hit or miss. He had some good finds, right? There were some guys. You want to get that?
Nope.
Okay.
In the middle.
Yeah. Pace had some good finds in the draft, right? But there was also a lot of misses, right? And you need a guy that is going to be able to, because our draft picks are kind of messed up for the next couple of years because of some of these trades that he made, right?
Yeah.
So you need to be able to find. You need to be able to find a general manager that not only can draft, but is well respected, because that's how you're going to draw the free agents. You know, if you got a general manager that has no clue what he's doing, the free agents aren't going to want to come here. And on top of that,
Correct.
if you're going to have a coach, you got to have a coach that's respected, you know? And if you can get Bieniemy or Leftwich, I can't help but to think that some of those players from Tampa Bay or Kansas City would want to come here, especially if they're a free agent. Right?
Yeah, I hear Rick Smith. Rick Smith is supposed to be a really good possibility in terms of GM. So there's Rick Smith, Reggie McKenzie.
There's also the guy from New Orleans.
God, is that no? That's not Omar Khan. Trying to think who that guy is off the top of my head. I don't know why they interviewed Jim Caldwell.
As for a general manager or for a coach?
For a coach. I mean, maybe a defensive coach or something. I don't know, but not as a head coach.
He had a winning record.
Him, yeah.
And you know, the one thing I would like about someone like a Jim Caldwell, he's more of he would be more of an administrator. Like, he would be a guy that would be able to bring in good coaches and let them do their thing. That was a problem with Nagy. Nagy was
64 and 54.
Yeah, with the Lions.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, look, the problem with Nagy was that he was always gung-ho and stubborn about running the offense. Right?
Absolutely. I agree. They need a head coach who's going to let the offensive minded coach run their own system and make sure it develops Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I saw Allen Robinson posted a tweet yesterday too about having deep routes. Wouldn't it be nice to have these deep routes and stuff? And it was just kind of like a little cut over at Nagy. So why don't we go to our next topic instead of just talking about football?
All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the Bulls, and trade deadline's coming up soon. And just kind of your thoughts on, do we stand put with what we've got? Do we make a trade? And if we make a trade, who's expendable? Because obviously to get something, you got to give something out there.
Yeah.
I sent you a text the other day that Willie Cauley-Stein was let go by the Mavericks. Do you think that's worth taking a flyer on? Because it wouldn't cost us anything.
Yeah, I know. I think those are the type of things that we have to do. Honestly, we need to look at those type of people who might be free. He has some personal reasons. He hasn't been playing for them for some time though, so that might be a risk. But I thought DeMarcus Cousins would be a good possibility, but also, some risk to him too, based on, prior things in the news.
Yeah,
I think that maybe that's why people are scared of him or his injuries.
And he doesn't.
But we need a big, but I don't want to risk selling off like a Kobe or Io for someone who might not fit well with us. I mean, we really haven't seen our group together. What if Patrick Williams was healthy? Would we be as hungry for a power forward as we are now, or a center backup? I don't like Tony Bradley. His handles suck. He can't hold on to the ball. It would be nice to have someone instead of him too.
So I guess the question really for me is, are we playing, do we think we're good enough to actually make a title run this year?
The way that they looked when everybody's healthy, they would be very competitive. It's a possibility, but I think they still need someone bigger to they're rebounding.
And see, that's the thing for me. Like if the Bulls think that they are a title contender and they're one player away from getting a ring, then yeah, I think you pull the trigger. If not, and you think that you're pretty good with what you've got right now, but you're ahead of schedule of where you thought you were going to be, and you can ride it out for one more year and get some of these get at least one big name power forward free agent to sign with us, right? And that's I think the thing, right?
That's exactly what I would do. I mean, I don't know if they truly knew that they were going to be this competitive, and the rest of the league was going to be pretty much down to their same level.
Yeah, and
as they are now.
Look, and I'm like a typical Bulls fan, right? When I find players that I like, even they may not be playing great or they don't have really consistent numbers, right? But every once 3, 4, 5 games, they help us out and get us a W, right? I like that player. I don't want to see that player leave, right? And looking at the roster up and down, like I don't want to see a Kobe be traded. I don't want to see Derek Jones Jr. get traded, right? Even the new guys we recently signed, right? I don't want to see some of these, like Malcolm Hill's playing great. I'm glad they sent him to a 2-way contract. I don't want to see this guy leave. Io obviously has like been a diamond in the rough, and he's not touchable, right? So who do we give up to get someone? And that's the thing. Like everyone's like, okay, make a trade. Who do you give up to make that trade?
I really don't know.
I mean, like
no clue.
The one guy maybe I'm willing to trade maybe would be Patrick Williams, but I would have to get that player back in return for like 2 years, not like a rent a player for 1 year.
Yeah. That's the worry. We still don't know like how good Patrick Williams could be. I don't know why we would take that risk. It's a short-term gamble, I think. Well, if we made a bigger trade.
Look, I think we still need to get someone, even if Patrick Williams comes back, because okay, you put Patrick Williams back in the starting lineup. Our second unit is still small. Like we're still
correct. Yeah, absolutely. We still
I mean, look,
I don't know.
If you think about it, let's say Patrick Williams does come back, right? Your second unit potentially.
He wasn't the best rebounder either.
I mean, look, your second unit potentially would be Io, Kobe, Caruso, Javonte Green, and then depending on the night, it's going to be a rotation of like, Derek Jones Jr. or Tony Bradley or whoever that next forward is that's having a good night, right? That's your rotation. But even that lineup, just those 4 guys alone, AC, Io, Kobe, and Javonte, that's small ball. I mean, unless we're running people out of the gym.
Yeah. We got 3 players, I think 3 players now from the COVID protocol and them being able to sign people. Alfonso McKinney, Tim Cook, Malcolm Hill. I think those 3. Am I missing?
Yeah, those 3. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, the Bulls, that's exactly what the Bears need is a GM. So the GM with the Bulls is excellent at looking at talent and historically like good players that were highly rated. Because Malcolm Hill, he was like a top 70 ranked national player, man.
Right. He was a great player. And McKinney, if I remember right, McKinney played well when he was with Golden State.
He did. He played with them in the championship.
Yeah, and he played.
Lately he hasn't looked so good,
but I mean, he's got that championship pedigree. Like he's got that experience, right? So you're right. And they've been able to find these diamonds in the rough, right? Like Eversley and AK have these great relationships all over the league, and they've seen a ton of players play, right? Mm-hmm. And they know who the guys they want to go after. And I'm hoping that they can pull something out of their hat and get someone cheap for like maybe a 2nd-round pick, right? Like the last thing I saw today, I saw earlier today, like, if the Clippers are still out of it and Paul George doesn't come back this year, right? one of their forwards might become available for cheap, for a draft pick because they've lost a ton of draft picks.
Yeah, I saw that too. I think Morris was somebody that was suggested.
Just someone who can rebound for us and play some defense and let the other guys do their thing.
So, hey, on the picture behind me, Cubs winning the World Series. So, I don't know if you knew this, but there was a recent Twitter about the Cubs Sox overall record over the past, I don't know, it was 3,400 something games.
Okay.
It's exactly identical, and they're both 500.
That's crazy.
It is kind of crazy, actually.
Find that tweet and then we'll post it.
I thought the Cubs would have a better record based on the last decade, but
wow.
So the drafting for Cubs and Sox. Obviously, we're in different positions. Our teams.
Yeah, for those just to clear, yeah, I'm a Sox fan. Vic is a Cubs fan.
Yeah,
and look, they definitely are two teams that are heading in different directions right now.
Yeah, the Sox have a championship caliber team. So, what do you want them to do in the draft? I mean, they've got a very low draft pick. So,
for me, we're now in that position to where
we're those draft picks.
To me, like, we're in a position now where, like, we're not as dependent on the draft, right? We're going to use those as assets to get other players.
Yeah.
Right. To me, I'd be drafting as many pitchers, especially left-handed pitchers. I'd be drafting as many pitchers as I could. Unless, like with your first or second round pick. Oh yeah.
If you were who?
If I was the White Sox,
you would be. Oh, right now.
Yeah, if I were the White Sox right now, I'm drafting as many pitchers as I can. Maybe with my 1 or 2 pick, that's probably the best player available in those rounds. But the baseball draft is like, what, 30 rounds? Like something ridiculous. It's like 30, 35 rounds, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's something the Cubs did that they didn't do very well for their run, because they relied basically on free agency for their pitchers.
Well,
so I think that's a great idea. Well, I mean, once you get your big bats and your best available, you've got to develop some pitchers, because you're going to get a lot of injuries.
The only guy that really in the next couple of years that might just to deteriorate in his skills is going to be Abreu, because he's the oldest guy on the team, right? Eventually, like, he's going to start to decline, but he's still going to be that elder statesman. But we got a guy, Gavin Sheets, who came up and was like lights out. And if he can continue to improve, that's going to be our future first baseman. So we're going to be set there. But every other position is like mid-20s, mid to late 20s, right? And they're all signed to long-term contracts. So
are they all?
Yeah,
all of them are?
Pretty much all of them. I mean, barring any unforeseen injury or circumstance, like, we're set for a while. The only ones that really have short contracts.
What are you guys missing right now? Pitching?
Our starting pitching is what let us down in the playoffs last year. We just don't have that.
Oh, that's true. I remember that.
I just don't think we have the guys that have the experience. I mean, we've been there 2 years in a row now, so hopefully they've learned for that. But the other thing too is we had 2 guys last year, Dylan Cease, and I can't think of the other guy right now who's escapes my mind. But we had 2 pitchers that had never pitched that many innings before in a season, and then when it came to playoff time, their arms were just dead, and we're throwing guys out there, starters, barely for 5 innings because they can't go more than 5. Because they're so gassed and they're so tanked from the length of the season, right?
Yep. Lance Lynn?
No, Lance Lynn was our ace, right? I mean, he didn't pitch that great in the postseason, but it's the left-hander, and I can't believe I can't even remember his name right now.
It's all right. I'm looking up Eloy.
Not Eloy. Eloy's outfielder. Sorry, Sox
I'm
fans.
looking.
I can't.
Thought it said left-hander on
Yeah,
here,
but you guys know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. Anyway, our pitching.
Giolito.
Not Giolito.
Giolito.
No.
Coco. Dallas.
No. There's one
Michael
other starter.
Kopech.
Kopech is going to be a starter next year.
I'm looking at their depth chart right now. Well, the guy you're talking about is not even
because he's a free agent.
Top 5 depth chart, man.
He's technically a free agent right now, and because of the lockout, we can't do anything as far as signing him or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
the Sox need. So who do the Sox need? Like, can you do anything with their previous draft picks and do a trade?
I don't even think it's a trade at this point. Thankfully, Reinsdorf is kind of in the spending mood, so I think it's really just going out and getting a free agent.
Free agents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, as a Sox fan now, I don't think we're in that position where we're worrying about trades now. We're going to try to sign the free agents, and then come mid-season, whatever gaps we have, we do a trade. You know, we got enough assets now in our farm system that we could trade for that rent-to-player.
Yeah.
In the fall.
Just hope that they don't bum out all those other prospects that you have for multiple years, like the Cubs did, because they looked really good the first 2 years.
The one guy I really hated to give up was Madrigal, who's with the Cubs now. That's the one guy I really hated to give up on, and I think he's going to be a really good player for you guys. It's just a matter of where they play him. He's not going to be a big power numbers guy, but he's going to be a guy that can get on base. And if you can get a guy behind him that's like an RBI guy, or at least can get him over, you're going to score a lot of runs at the top of your lineup. And maybe that's just enough, right? In this day and age, if you can get enough runs early to get your pitching staff pitching from ahead instead of from behind, that's a world of difference. Don't you think?
Yeah, I actually think I think the Cubs, if they can spend some money over the winter, but I think everybody hasn't been able to. No,
because everyone's on a lockup.
Free agents.
If you guys can get Correa, if you can get Carlos Correa from the Astros, if you can pry him away and put him with Madrigal as not only your double play lineup, but potentially your 1-2 punch at the top of the lineup, that's a pretty good start.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they have some strong possibilities, but they really need to get their farm system back up and running by taking the best overall picks. They don't have, some people believe in, like you were talking about, pitchers. Like some teams have gone pitcher heavy before, but I do like the way Epstein created the club in terms of just getting that, big bats, best picks.
Yeah.
And then eventually you might be able to pull off some other trades with those guys for what you need. So,
yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in again for this 2022 edition of our podcast. If you enjoy the content, we'd really appreciate you pushing that subscribe button and then also hitting that notification bell so you get notified on future episodes. We're going to try to get on, now that we're in the middle of Bulls season, we're definitely going to try to get on after Bulls games just to try to do a quick recap and just some quick thoughts after Bulls games. We won't do it after every game, but we'll try to do it as many as we can. And then we'll be back to our weekly podcast. And hopefully starting with this edition, you'll be able to not only watch us on YouTube, but you'll be able to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play, wherever you get your podcast on. We'd appreciate you listening. And again, any comments we'd welcome below. Feel free to make comments and maybe some future topics you'd like us to talk about and kind of get our thoughts on from going forward. So, all right, Vic, until next time, peace out, everybody. See ya.